On our 10th wedding anniversary, Jordan, whom I hadn't heard from in a long time, sent me an email. It contained a video taken by a famous paparazzi in Fairview, showing my wife Scarlett Hayes and her first love getting intimate in a newly purchased Mercedes-Benz. The paparazzi demanded $70,000, threatening to post it online otherwise. I told Jordan to handle it discreetly, then called Scarlett Hayes to ask where she was. "I'm working overtime at Apex Corp. I'll be back tomorrow. Does the CEO also work overtime?" She suddenly snapped. "I'm just working overtime. Do you have to be so nosy? Can you stop being so annoying, like a whining husband? If you keep making a fuss, we're getting a divorce." Listening to the dial tone after she hung up, I felt a sense of release, a heart that couldn't be warmed in 10 years. It was time to let it go. The next evening, when Scarlett Hayes returned, I was enjoying a hearty meal of spicy fried chicken. Scarlett Hayes didn't like spicy food, but I was someone who can't get enough of spicy food. That's why, in our 10 years of marriage, I had never once eaten anything spicy in front of her. Scarlett Hayes sat down, frowning at the table full of red, spicy dishes. "Why is everything spicy? What am I supposed to eat?" I remained unfazed, not even lifting my eyelids, and said calmly, "If you want something to eat, order takeout yourself." Scarlett Hayes angrily slammed the chopsticks from my hand onto the floor. "Ethan Miller, is this because I forgot our wedding anniversary yesterday? Who are you being passive-aggressive for? I even bought you a gift." With that, she placed a beautifully wrapped gift in front of me. "Now that you've got your gift, stop acting like I've wronged you. Go cook some dishes for me. You don't go out to work, and you don't do anything at home either. What's the point of me marrying you?" Scarlett Hayes sneered. Listening to her endless stream of demeaning words, I didn't move. It was our 10th year, and she finally remembered that our wedding anniversary was on the same day as her first love's birthday. Seeing no reaction from me, Scarlett Hayes shoved me. "I'm talking to you. Are you deaf? When did you become so petty?" As soon as she finished speaking, her gaze met my placid eyes. A flicker of panic crossed her face, then she retorted self-righteously, "You eat my food, you use my money, and you walk around with a long face all day. When you bought Kyle Peterson that car, you used my card, $700,000. I sent him the bill." Scarlett Hayes immediately lost her composure, indignantly demanding, "I just bought him a birthday gift. Do you have to be so petty as to send him the bill? Get it back right now. Besides, I didn't forget your gift. What more do you want?" With that, she swept the gift box off the table, sending the decorative filler and string lights scattering everywhere. At the same time, a cheap green hat also fell out. Scarlett Hayes froze, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. "Why is it green?" Her words trailed off, and she stubbornly argued with me. I consulted a master, and he said wearing a tacky novelty hat symbolizing cuckoldry in context would boost your career. We are civilized people, so don't insult the color green, okay? Listening to her try to pin such a big label on me, I just laughed in exasperation. Scarlett Hayes, spending $700,000 of my money on a male escort for a gift, and only a few dollars for your husband's gift, you're really something. Hearing me call him a male escort, Scarlett Hayes couldn't sit still, her face flushed with anger. She abruptly stood up and slapped me across the face. "Kyle isn't a male escort, he's just forced to work at a nightclub to make a living. How can you insult people like that? I know you have a problem with him, we've already broken up, and now we're just friends. If he and I really had something illicit going on, what would that have to do with you?" Throughout our 10 years of marriage, Scarlett Hayes had always brushed me off with similar excuses, but just 10 minutes before she came back, Kyle Peterson had posted on social media. In the photo, Kyle Peterson was tightly embracing Scarlett Hayes, and the woman in his arms was wearing a sexy slip dress, with a faint hickey visible on the side of her neck, making the scene extremely suggestive. This was a side of Scarlett Hayes I had never seen. Even more ironically, the caption read, "My first love said she could never forget me, and that she would love me for a lifetime. From now on, the title is his, but her love is mine." Laughably, I had also received a call from Kyle Peterson, saying he had personally picked out a gift for me, one that perfectly suited me. All these insults had been brought upon me by Scarlett Hayes. I pressed my tongue against my stinging cheek, about to open my mouth and say I wanted a divorce. Scarlett Hayes' phone rang, playing Kyle Peterson's exclusive ringtone. "Kyle, what's wrong?" Kyle Peterson's trembling voice came from the other end of the line. "Scarlett, I fell down the stairs. I can't move my leg." Scarlett Hayes' expression changed instantly. Without even glancing at me, she grabbed her coat and rushed out. I stood frozen. 5 minutes later, I received a text message from her. "If you don't like that hat, just throw it away. I'll buy you a new one. My parents really like you. Don't throw a tantrum because of Kyle." I didn't reply, but she sent another one. "I'll be back later," reading her messages. I couldn't help but laugh. It wasn't that she liked me. It was her parents who did. I had always known that Scarlett Hayes' parents disliked Kyle Peterson, to the point of outright disgust. The three of us were high school classmates. Back then, Kyle Peterson was the typical bad student in the teacher's eyes. But Scarlett Hayes still loved him desperately, even giving up her college entrance exam that year for him. Later, Scarlett Hayes' parents forcibly took Scarlett Hayes home and had her transfer schools to repeat a year. Scarlett Hayes and I met years later on a blind date. I thought they had cut off contact. I never expected them to still be entangled after all these years, and it only got worse after she married me under her parents' pressure. Thinking of this, I scoffed and replied to her, "When you get back, we're getting a divorce." Message sent. I then went to take a shower, but after I came out of the shower, my stomach suddenly began to ache. Perhaps it was because I hadn't eaten spicy food in so long that my stomach couldn't handle it, and sometime earlier I had been hit by a drunk driver, injuring my leg, so I couldn't drive. The sudden pain made me break out in a cold sweat. I could only pull out my phone and call Scarlett Hayes, but she never picked up. Just then, Kyle Peterson updated his social media post. It was a photo of Scarlett Hayes disinfecting his almost healed wound. Her expression a mix of tenderness and concern. The caption read, "After so many years apart, heaven has finally taken pity on us. When I succeed, how should I repay you? My love, should I give myself to you?" This social media post, with their faces clearly visible, immediately stirred up a storm. Many mutual friends called me, asking what was going on. I just brushed them off with vague answers. Just then, Jordan called to say that the vehicle that hit me had been found. I asked him to bring the documents and come find me, and to take me to the hospital on the way. Before I started swearing from the pain, I finally arrived at the hospital. After the doctor finished examining me, the nurse put me on an for drip. I then opened the documents Jordan had brought for me. Looking at the familiar car in the documents, I was surprised. Then I looked at the car in the boastful video Kyle Peterson had sent me that day, and I smiled. A man consumed by jealousy and a woman completely blinded by love. They truly were a perfect match. After the for drip, I took a taxi home by myself. When Scarlett Hayes returned in the middle of the night, I was already asleep, without a moment's hesitation. She ripped my blanket off and launched into a furious tirade. "What are you making a fuss about now? Kyle hurt his leg, and as a friend, I went to see him. What's wrong with that?" Waking up abruptly when I was sound asleep, anyone would be furious. Before she could continue, I irritably cut her off. "You're not wrong. If you want to live happily ever after with that male escort, I don't care. You two are a perfect match, incredibly suited, the best in the world. Happy now. If you're satisfied, then please get out. I need to sleep." Scarlett Hayes' face turned dark at my words, but what did I care? Didn't she hate it most when I called Kyle Peterson a male escort? I decided I would say it. He used my money, slept with my wife, lived off my money, and still flaunted himself in front of me. Calling him a male escort was already letting him off easy. Thinking of this, I remembered the $420,000 watch in the safe that I hadn't given her. She had seen it last time we went shopping and thought it was too expensive to buy. I later took on a few freelance jobs and bought it for her. I had planned to give it to her on our wedding anniversary, but who knew she'd give me a tacky novelty hat symbolizing cuckoldry in context instead, and let her first love use her influence to humiliate me. She knew what green symbolized in love. Yet she still treated me like an idiot and lied to me. Everything Scarlett Hayes and Kyle Peterson did seemed to mock me, as if I were insane. Scarlett Hayes suddenly smashed the framed photo on the nightstand to the floor. "Ethan Miller, that's enough. I never thought you were this kind of person. Not only do you judge people, but you are also so disgusting. You weren't like this when I first met you. I truly regret marrying you. If you're so damn bored at home with nothing to do, go get a job. Don't let your brain rot at home. I shouldn't have come back tonight to listen to your nonsense. Have I been too good to you lately? Go reflect on yourself and come find me when you realize your mistake." After her rant, she still felt unsatisfied. She put all her strength into slapping me across the face, then slammed the door shut as she left. Listening to the deafening slam of the door, for the first time, I didn't lower myself to beg her. In these 10 years of marriage, every argument ended with me giving in. It was my love that made her forget who she truly was, and forget that her family's current life, including her present achievements, were all thanks to me. Scarlett Hayes didn't come back for the next few days. A week later, she finally called. It seemed I hadn't given in, and her tone was quite impatient. "Come down. We're going to my parents' house for dinner." Before I could speak, she hung up. Mr. Hayes and Mrs. Hayes were still quite good to me, and I also needed to explain the divorce to them in person. Walking to the car, I habitually opened the passenger door, but upon seeing the pink men's underwear on the seat, I quickly closed the door and got into the back seat. If it were before, I would have immediately confronted Scarlett Hayes about what was going on, demanding an explanation. But this time, I didn't ask anything. Just sat calmly in the back. Scarlett Hayes, unusually, volunteered an explanation. "Kyle left these behind last time he changed here. Don't go telling my mom. I nodded expressionlessly. When I bent down to tie my shoelace, I saw a used condom. I said nothing, wrapped it in a tissue, and threw it outside. When we arrived at Scarlett Hayes' parents' house, Mrs. Hayes sensed something was wrong between us and kept giving us meaningful glances, but I pretended not to notice. Finally, after dinner, Mrs. Hayes couldn't hold back any longer and directly asked, "Did you two have an argument?" Scarlett Hayes' lips curved into a bright smile, and she leaned openly against me. "We're perfectly fine. Mom, don't overthink it," Mrs. Hayes instantly exclaimed to Mr. Hayes. "See, I told you the person in the news wasn't my sweetheart. It was just someone with a similar build. You still didn't believe me, not even your own daughter. That's too much." "News? What news?" Scarlett Hayes looked at Mrs. Hayes, bewildered. Mrs. Hayes took out her phone and opened the link to show her. It stated that the CEO of Apex Corp had an affair with a nightclub worker, spending lavishly on him. It was rumored that a colleague had taken an intimate video of them in a car, but the female CEO's Apex Corp leadership had bought it back at a high price. After Scarlett Hayes read it, her face turned beet red with anger. "This is pure slander. Which media outlet is this? I'm going to sue them. If my boss really bought it, would he still keep me at Apex Corp?" I nodded in agreement. "You're right, you certainly can't stay at Apex Corp." "Ethan Miller, what does this have to do with you?" Scarlett Hayes was so furious she dropped all pretense. I ignored her, simply taking out the documents I had prepared and placing them on the table. Some time ago, I was hit by a drunk driver. That person was Scarlett Hayes' ex-boyfriend, Kyle Peterson. Mr. Hayes and Mrs. Hayes looked surprised at the mention of Kyle Peterson's name, probably wondering why this person keeps showing up like a bad penny. "Scarlett Hayes, if you don't agree to the divorce, he'll turn this evidence over to the police department." No sooner had I spoken than Scarlett Hayes kicked over a chair. "I just bought him a birthday gift. Do you really have to be so petty? I think you're just jealous of Kyle. How can a man be so petty? If you dare give it to the police department, he'll divorce you tomorrow." Hearing her still threaten me with divorce, I smiled. "No need for tomorrow. We'll get divorced today." With that, I pulled out the divorce papers and placed them on the table. She didn't even look and started to curse profusely. "Ethan Miller, after all these years of marriage, you've lived off my money, you don't go out to work, and now you want half my assets in a divorce? Do you take me for a fool? Lived off your money?" The money had given her these past few years amounted to hundreds of thousands, if not millions, yet she had the audacity to say such a thing. "All that money came from my clients who were willing to work with you because of my connections. So in the end, didn't I bring you those resources? That little bit of money isn't even a drop in the bucket for me. I can't believe you have the nerve to say that." This time, she finally stopped hiding her ugly true colors. "You're not as handsome as Kyle, not as thoughtful as Kyle, but your temper is much worse than his. I knew I shouldn't have married you back then. You should always marry someone you love, so you don't feel disgusted looking at them." I clenched my hands, my nails digging into my palms, and sent a message to Jordan. "Jordan, I need you to do something. Remove Scarlett Hayes from her CEO position, then meet me at the Olympus Tower." After the message was sent, I looked up at Scarlett Hayes. "Scarlett Hayes, I originally thought about leaving you something, but now I've changed my mind. You'll just leave empty-handed. Also, the money you used to buy Kyle Peterson's car was mine, and I have the right to dispose of it, since Scarlett Hayes was so repulsive. I didn't need to save her any face." Scarlett Hayes stared at me with wide eyes, her face paling. Perhaps she hadn't expected her husband, who had always been subservient to her, to show such a resolute side, and she certainly hadn't imagined that I, a stay-at-home husband, had another identity. Mrs. Hayes reacted faster than Scarlett, quickly pulling me aside and gently trying to persuade me. "Ethan, what's going on? Why are you suddenly talking about that person? You and Scarlett have been married for 10 years. Haven't you always been happy? Always been happy?" I scoffed to myself. For these past 10 years, she couldn't even remember my birthday or our wedding anniversary. Her mind was solely fixated on Kyle Peterson. For Kyle Peterson, she could abandon everything. For Kyle Peterson, she could leave me on the road in a heavy downpour. For Kyle Peterson, she could film some inappropriate videos. For Kyle Peterson, she could do anything. The most ironic thing was that when she married me, she told me I was the light of her life. Yet on her text message signature, it read, "Jai, my only light." I asked her multiple times, and she always said she was too lazy to change it. In truth, our marriage had long lost its meaning, but I kept deceiving myself, pretending that Scarlett Hayes hadn't truly cheated, that she still loved me. But the email I received on our 10th anniversary dragged me out of the web of lies I had woven for myself. I also admit that subconsciously, I had kept some things from Scarlett Hayes. All these years, she never knew that I was the owner of Apex Corp. Because I yearned for genuine love. I chose to conceal my identity. When I unexpectedly encountered the person I had a crush on since my youth, I was naturally overjoyed and wanted to fulfill almost all her desires. She wanted a career. She wanted success, so I made her CEO and never interfered with her work, giving her ample opportunity to prove herself, but I never expected her to be someone rotten to the core. My feelings for her had transformed from heartfelt affection to utter disdain. I pulled up my sleeve, revealing the wound on my arm that Kyle Peterson had caused when he hit me earlier. Traces of blood were still seeping through the bandage. This was the evidence left from Kyle Peterson hitting me just a few days ago. Scarlet Hayes stared wide-eyed at my wound, then at my utterly calm face. She panicked, quickly asking, "Such a big thing. Why didn't you tell me?" Mr. Hayes's eyes were red with fury. He slapped Scarlet Hayes hard, pointing at her and yelling, "You unfilial daughter! For a punk, you would do this to your own husband? Explain yourself clearly." Even Mrs. Hayes, who had always dotted on Scarlet Hayes, looked at her with disappointment. Scarlet Hayes covered her face, muttering, "I didn't know. I really didn't know." I gave a sarcastic smile. "Of course you didn't know. When I was calling you countless times from the hospital, you were comforting your first love who had done wrong and fled. Then, I even shoved the video the paparazzi had taken earlier right in front of Scarlet Hayes. You two have become utterly shameless. What more do you have to say? This isn't about whether you want to divorce or not. If you don't divorce me, then I'll have to consider myself a widower." The situation had spiraled out of Scarlet Hayes' control. She never expected that video to be taken that day, let alone delivered to me. Mrs. Hayes watched the video, her face turning pale, then clutched her chest and collapsed. Scarlet Hayes quickly called for an ambulance. Before leaving, she didn't forget to tell me, "Let's talk about this properly when I get back. I'm taking my mom to the hospital first, and don't you dare go after Kyle Peterson." After they left, I felt a sense of lightness. For 10 years, I had endured so much grievance, only wishing for a beautiful and happy family with Scarlet Hayes. I never imagined it would end up like this, and even at the very last moment, Scarlet Hayes was still protecting Kyle Peterson. But how could I let go of this man who had humiliated me so many times? I would calculate everything meticulously. As I entered the Olympus Towers parking garage, I spotted a glaringly out-of-place red Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon. How could a male escort afford such a car? This was Scarlet Hayes' birthday gift to Kyle Peterson, and the first thing Kyle Peterson did after receiving it was come to flaunt it to me. I subtly curved my lips into a smile and waved to the bodyguards behind me. Smash it. The bodyguards' destructive power was immense. Less than 10 minutes after I spoke, the G-Wagon in front of me was utterly wrecked. The manager of the Olympus Tower rushed out upon hearing the commotion. Just as he was about to speak, Jordan walked over and whispered a few words in his ear, and the manager quieted down. Not long after, Kyle Peterson also rushed out in a hurry. He must have just climbed out of some woman's bed. His pants zipper wasn't even pulled up. The moment he saw me, he swung his fist and charged at me, but was stopped by the bodyguards just a step away. Seeing he couldn't reach me, he raged impotently, "You're destroying private property. I'm calling the police department to arrest you." I threw the previous $700,000 bill in front of him. "It's a car I paid for myself. I'm in a bad mood. So what if I smash it? Forget a mere G-Wagon, even if it were a Rolls-Royce Cullinan. I'd smash it without hesitation if I wanted to." Kyle Peterson glared at me, grinding his teeth. Then, as if remembering a lifeline, he picked up his phone and incessantly called Scarlet Hayes, but no one answered. Scarlet Hayes was already into deep. Her dismissal notice had arrived, and her mother was likely hospitalized. How could she possibly have time to deal with her first love? Kyle Peterson's eyes were bloodshot as he looked at me. "Don't get cocky. You'll see what happens when Scarlet gets back." I smiled. "All right. I'll be waiting." Ethan Miller, do you know that the unloved one is the third party? Scarlet has loved me for over 10 years. In terms of who was here first, you're the one who came later. What nerve do you have to be so persistent? No matter what you do, it won't affect our feelings for each other. Just accept that fact. Kyle Peterson yelled hysterically at me, listening to his morally bankrupt words. I couldn't help but laugh. "Is that so? Then take a look at this first." I took the documents Jordan had uncovered and threw them in front of Kyle Peterson. They detailed everything Kyle Peterson had done since graduating high school. He specifically targeted older rich women for scams and deceit. If the documents in my hand were sent to the police department, he could probably be sentenced to 20 or 30 years. And Scarlet Hayes was also one of his targets, a target he could bleed dry for a long time. Someone like Kyle Peterson, selfish and self-serving, only loves himself. But he's a perfect match for a brainless woman like Scarlet Hayes. The onlookers were gradually increasing. After all, family shame shouldn't be aired in public, and I didn't want to get further entangled with him. I slapped the bill onto his face and said coldly, "I won't pursue the money Scarlet Hayes spent on you before. Consider it alms for a beggar, but you need to pay back that $700,000. Also, your medical expenses from hitting me, plus car repair fees, add up to $840,000. If you don't pay up, you can look forward to jail time. I looked at Kyle Peterson, who had wet himself in fear, and left with a smile. 2 days later, Mrs. Hayes was discharged and returned home. Scarlett Hayes already knew about her dismissal and about me wrecking Kyle Peterson's car, but she didn't dare say a word. In front of Mr. Hayes and Mrs. Hayes, I placed the redrafted divorce papers before her. After this series of blows, Scarlett Hayes looked quite disheveled. But she refused to divorce no matter what. Even when I said I would send Kyle Peterson to the police department, she wouldn't agree. Eventually, she stopped coming home altogether. I didn't indulge her either. I packed my personal belongings, preparing to move back into the house my parents had left me. This house was bought when Scarlett Hayes and I got married, but later, she preferred to live in a rental apartment with Kyle Peterson rather than come home. She claimed I couldn't give her a sense of home, while if Kyle Peterson cooked her a bowl of plain congee, she would post on social media saying that was what home felt like. In her eyes, I was just a shield, protecting her from her parents' constant barrage. That's why even her choice of gifts was always the cheapest. Looking at these gifts I once treasured, I threw them all into the trash can, but I kept the tacky novelty hat symbolizing cuckoldry in context, thinking that if she ever found another fool to marry, I would send it to him as a wedding gift. Just as I finished packing my things, Scarlett Hayes returned. Kyle Peterson came back with her. Scarlett Hayes ultimately couldn't bear it and spent a large sum of money to get Kyle Peterson out, but now Kyle Peterson no longer dared to flaunt himself in front of me. He humbly said, "Scarlett's drunk. I brought her back. I promise you, I won't contact her again. Please don't mind." I don't mind. I zipped up my suitcase and said to the submissive Kyle Peterson, "From today onwards, Scarlett Hayes and I have nothing to do with each other. You two can do whatever you like." Kyle Peterson froze, unsure what to say. "Honey, don't be angry, okay? I'll buy you gifts, see? I've bought you a whole closet full already." As she spoke, Scarlett Hayes pointed to the empty closet, not realizing what she was doing for a moment. Then she suddenly rushed over, grabbing my hand and frantically asking, "Ethan, where are the gifts I gave you?" "In the trash can." She looked at me in disbelief. "You threw them away." Scarlett Hayes stumbled over to the closet, then knelt on the floor and burst into tears. I didn't want to see these two repulsive people anymore. I grabbed my suitcase and slammed the door shut as I left. To my surprise, Kyle Peterson chased after me, cautiously asking, "What you just said was true?" Watching the unconcealed joy on his face, I gave a meaningful smile. "Of course it's true. We're getting a divorce. From now on, you two can reunite however you like. He'll be far away." Upon hearing this, Kyle Peterson couldn't help but burst out laughing, as if his long-held dream had finally come true. Well, I suppose so. After all, he thought he had found himself a sugar mama. Knowing Scarlett Hayes, she's so concerned with appearances that she probably wouldn't tell Kyle Peterson about being dismissed. So in Kyle Peterson's eyes, Scarlett Hayes was just a rich, self-sacrificing fool. I offered my heartfelt wishes. "You two should definitely be together. You're a perfect match. A scumbag and manipulative woman. A perfect match." Kyle Peterson's face turned red with anger, but he couldn't utter a single word. I didn't waste any more time with him. I grabbed my suitcase and left. After all, I was still waiting to see the moment this true love of theirs would fall apart. The next morning, I was woken up by my phone ringtone. It was Scarlett Hayes. I hung up immediately, but she wouldn't give up, calling again and again. After answering one call, I yelled impatiently, "What do you want? How did I not realize how annoying you were before?" Scarlett Hayes was silent for a few seconds, then stammered, Did I do anything foolish yesterday?" I scoffed. "You woke me up this early just to ask such a pointless question." She paused, then cautiously began, "Ethan, I know I was wrong. I don't want a divorce. You're the one I truly want to ask." "Scarlett Hayes, we've been together for 10 years. Don't you think I know what kind of person you are? Stop talking nonsense. Sign the divorce papers quickly, or I'll file a lawsuit." With that, I hung up and went back to sleep. I knew Scarlett Hayes couldn't bear to lose her former power and status. On her first day in office, I made homemade soup and brought it to her, and to help her win over the staff, I bought coffee for everyone at Apex Corp. But I hadn't expected Kyle Peterson to be there too. A group of employees were all saying how lucky Scarlett Hayes was to have such a good husband. But Scarlett Hayes, while drinking the soup, disparaged me. "He just stays at home all day, doesn't earn money, only knows how to make soup. He's not manly at all." With that, she even motioned for Kyle Peterson to come over and drink the rest of the soup. "Kyle, you work harder, drink more. Unlike some useless people who just stay at home." This remark amused Kyle Peterson. He pretended to be embarrassed, but the words that came out of his mouth weren't kind. "This soup is good. I wonder if he'll get a chance to drink it again next time." Scarlett Hayes immediately followed up, "If you want to drink it, just tell me, and I'll have him make it for you." At that moment, the two of them treated me as if I were invisible and started openly flirting, and I foolishly held back my anger, thinking I couldn't let her lose face on her first day as CEO. Thinking of this, I began to regret not pouring the soup over their heads then and there. The more I thought about it, the more aggrieved I felt. I picked up my phone and sent Scarlett Hayes a message. "You have 1 day to move out of that house. Don't defile my house there. Thank you." That day, Scarlett Hayes called me non-stop, like a madwoman. I leisurely put my phone on silent and started watching a movie. Although I didn't want any contact with her, I sent divorce papers to her house every day. I wouldn't give up until she signed them anyway. I wasn't short on money after 2 weeks of sending them. I left a note inside for her. "If you don't sign, you'll file for divorce and you'll end up with nothing." Scarlett Hayes found an excuse to evade me, saying she needed to go back to her family home for a few days and asked me to wait. Who knew that this waiting would lead me to Kyle Peterson instead? That day, Kyle Peterson, dressed to the nines, stood downstairs from my house and audaciously asked me, "Aren't you getting a divorce? Why is it taking so long? You're not regretting it, are you? You should be firmer with her. Don't let her think she still has a chance." Upon hearing this, I chuckled aloud. I want to speed things up too, but I can't exactly hold a knife to her throat and force her to divorce me. No sooner had I finished speaking than Scarlett Hayes walked over, her face dark. "Kyle Peterson, aren't you supposed to be at work? What are you doing here?" "Scarlett, I immediately cut him off. "Scarlett Hayes, your first love can't wait to marry you. Are you sure you still want to be entangled with me? Don't let him run off with another woman." Scarlett Hayes gave me a deep look, then pulled Kyle Peterson away and left. I had no desire to waste any more time with them, so I directly entrusted my lawyer to file for divorce. Scarlett Hayes initially put up a fight, refusing to divorce, and even tried to play the victim card by involving her parents. I lost my parents when I was young, so I deeply craved family connection, and Scarlett Hayes' parents had always been kind to me, which made me endure year after year. Now I had come to my senses. What good were those intangible things to me? On the 3rd day after I filed for divorce, Scarlett Hayes finally agreed to a mediated divorce. I heard that a few days prior, she had fallen down the stairs and hit her head, staying in the hospital for a few days. She had been muttering my name every day, saying she wanted to eat the food I cooked. Kyle Peterson, trying to impress her, cooked her a meal, but by unfortunate coincidence used 2 incompatible ingredients, causing Scarlett Hayes, whose head wound hadn't even healed, to suffer from food poisoning and become violently ill for a period. On the day we got the divorce papers, the weather was as good as my mood, as we parted ways at the county clerk's office. Kyle Peterson triumphantly kissed Scarlett Hayes a few times, then looked at me, puffed up like a victorious rooster. "Ethan Miller, even if Scarlett and I were apart for 10 years, I'm the one who ultimately got her. You must be furious, right? But from the very beginning of our love story, you already lost to me, so just give up." Looking at his smug expression, I decided to offer my final, sincere blessing. "I used to overestimate myself, but now I truly believe you two are perfectly matched, an ethereal match, the best match in the world. So remember to stay stuck together." After saying that, I got into my newly purchased Lincoln without looking back and drove away. Afterward, I transferred a sum of money to Scarlett Hayes' parents. They often expressed their guilt, telling me that their daughter had wronged me. More than that, they couldn't understand why their daughter was so deeply infatuated with a punk. Actually, there was one thing Scarlett Hayes never knew. Whenever she was upset back in school, it was I who put 2 chocolates in her desk drawer, not Kyle Peterson, however. I no longer planned to tell her about it. When Scarlett Hayes' parents appeared at my doorstep again, desperately trying to persuade me to stay, I showed them the divorce papers and subtly conveyed that their daughter and I could not go back to how things were. I had suffered for 10 years, living a life of hardship, but now the chapter was finally closed. Less than half a month after the divorce, Scarlett Hayes and Kyle Peterson got their marriage license, but after they got married, Kyle Peterson discovered that Scarlett Hayes had been fired, and she was left with nothing after divorcing me. Scarlett Hayes' money wasn't enough to support his extravagant lifestyle, so they started fighting every day. Dissatisfied with the situation, Kyle Peterson went out to find another sugar mama lately. Many friends have been sending me videos of Scarlett Hayes trying to catch them cheating. Now that I had plenty of free time, I watched that video over and over again. 2 weeks later, friends on the grapevine reported that they had broken up. Scarlett Hayes used her looks to find a wealthy businessman who was a good deal older than her. Her parents even threatened to disown her because of it. But later, she found the businessman couldn't satisfy her needs, and eventually, she got back together with Kyle Peterson. This time, I was well prepared. First, I handed over the evidence of Kyle Peterson's DUI driving under the influence hit and run against me to the police, suing him again and making him pay for his actions. Then I sent the tacky novelty hat symbolizing cuckoldry in context to Scarlett Hayes' husband and made their past actions public. Reportedly, her husband beat Scarlett Hayes after receiving that hat. Seeing them suffer brought me a sense of satisfaction. What goes around comes around. No one should think they can get away with anything. Ultimately, Kyle Peterson was sentenced to 12 years in prison for hit and run and DUI driving under the influence. After being abandoned by the new wealthy businessman, Scarlett Hayes discovered she had HPV, somehow. Rumors were circulating in our social circle that she got HPV due to her promiscuous behavior. Scarlett Hayes' dream of finding another rich man died completely. After dealing with that scumbag and manipulative woman, I continued to expand my business empire. During this process, I met the person who was truly right for me. Soon after, I married her. 2 years later, our first child was born. I finally had a home of my own. I had never imagined that the owner behind Apex Corp was Ethan Miller. It turned out that the career I had always been so proud of was something he had helped me with behind the scenes. From then on, I regretted it, but Ethan Miller seemed determined to divorce me. I clung on for a while, but it was no use. In the end, I had no choice but to divorce him. The day we finalized the divorce papers, I wasn't as happy as I thought it'd be. I kept telling myself that divorce was good, that I could openly be with Kyle Peterson once I was divorced, but I hadn't realized Kyle Peterson was only after my money. He didn't love me at all. After marrying Kyle Peterson, he started to complain that I couldn't satisfy his material desires, and he even went to find another sugar mama. I told him many times, but he always said, "Since you can't satisfy me, of course he'll look for someone else." Just like you did with Ethan Miller. Not long after, I divorced Kyle Peterson. Unwilling to give up, I found an older wealthy businessman, hoping to save money to open Apex Corp, but the businessman was in poor health and couldn't satisfy my needs. Ultimately, I ended up with Kyle Peterson again. Just as our lives started to improve, Ethan Miller's revenge came. It didn't take him long to send Kyle Peterson to jail. Just as I was wondering what he would do to me, I was diagnosed with HPV. It seemed like heaven was punishing me. Punishing me for my disrespect in my previous relationship. Indeed, what goes around comes around.